Good afternoon, Facebook. Thursday, April 30th, 2020, 2:14 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I have nothing prepared today. I just slept in, got breakfast, and I've been running around doing certain creative projects all day long. I don't have any figures printed out. I'll get back to that probably tomorrow. The only real update in news is that the governor has confirmed that the stay-at-home order in Washington state will be extended in some form. As I've already pointed out here, the restrictions on certain recreational activities such as boating, fishing, etc., those are going to be eased as of the 5th. And then other restrictions are going to remain in place. Tomorrow, the governor is expected to outline Washington state's phased reopening. I assume that means that the guidelines issued by the coronavirus task force in Washington, D.C., are going to represent the basic outline of how our state's reopening will commence and proceed. That was to begin with a certain gateway. If you've satisfied certain statistical or numeric requirements, then you can move into phase one. And then there are two subsequent phases. Phase three being called by some the new normal. I don't foresee there being a return to what we were used to until a vaccine has been found. I read a headline someplace over the last 24 hours that say that Beijing and Washington, D.C. are neck and neck in our respective searches for a vaccine, our efforts to develop a vaccine. I don't really think that this is the type of thing we should be competing about. It's just something that needs to happen. Perhaps China's in a better position and or maybe a little further ahead in terms of their knowledge of this virus. Maybe that'll give them a bit of an advantage in their efforts to produce a vaccine, provided that it does and they find one which is viable. I hope that the Chinese government will make sure that this vaccine is available to us worldwide. There's an investigation going on about the origin of the virus. The official party line is that it originated in a wet market in Wuhan. Animal to human transmission, a bat, I guess. But there is some credible information which indicates that the true origin of the virus was in a laboratory in Wuhan. It's essentially universally accepted at this point that the virus was not man-made and that the virus was not genetically manipulated in any way. That it is a naturally occurring disease. The point of contention, however, is where it truly originated. Some people are speculating that the human pandemic began in a laboratory in Wuhan, where the virus was being studied not as a bioweapon of any kind, but rather in an effort to demonstrate that the Chinese government had the same capacity to study and to protect its citizens against this kind of disease as any other country, namely the United States. And that it was some kind of blunder on the part of the people working in that laboratory which resulted in the disease escaping and leading the world into this bizarre crisis in which we now find ourselves. And it is bizarre. and shocking and very tragic. And I'm waiting to see what results that investigation yields. I'm sure we all are. The president gave some kind of a speech today, or is maybe still giving it now. I haven't watched it. I'm trying to maybe wean myself off of my news addiction a little bit. Given that I have very little else to focus on right now, I don't like what all this depressing and confusing and internally contradictory information might be doing to my mind. It's kind of a twisted subject. But tomorrow, again, our governor will lay out the more definitive steps for the way our state will open. I get the sense that our road back to normalcy is going to be decidedly slow and cautious. And I don't know which phase of the reopening will include the resuming of operations of a retail music store like the one I work at. I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to be before I can get back to my life. Today is my 46th consecutive broadcast. 46 of them without missing a day, even if it's just taking my iPhone out to a lake and live streaming a shot of the beautiful view over the water. Just a documentation of what life is like during all this. On another note, my friends and I, while hanging out last night, were talking about writing. Writing as in fiction or fantasy stories. We're all pretty nerdy where that kind of thing is concerned. We all really love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and things like that. And it's reminded me that for years I've been developing a fictitious work of my own. And I've gone back into some of my old word processing programs here, and I've found a few doodles, you might call them, just like a page and a half of a scene of dialogue between two people within this story that I'm writing. And I've decided to start devoting some energy into fleshing those ideas out. And I look forward to meeting up with my friends so we can sit and compare notes, because it's surprising how similar these ideas are. One of my friends found an old notebook of his last night and began sharing some of the ideas that he'd written in it. And it really reminded me a lot of the kind of storyline that I've been toying with literally for years. Some of these stories might be compatible. And if we can successfully collaborate creatively, we might come up with something pretty interesting. So, hey, there's a new creative project to work on. Speaking of creative projects, the Ancestors of God project is pretty much on standstill right now. And the music is done. Most of the artwork is done. The only thing that remains to be done is distribution and duplication if we decide to sell physical media. I think we will. While we wait to hear when we can get back together and rehearse, there is some communication going on with a certain company who specializes in duplicating CDs and things like that. So that's a potential avenue for us in the midst of this lockdown. And we all very much look forward to being able to get together again and play music together again and set and achieve goals again, which is something that Ancestors of God has always been very good at. We know how to get things done, and that's a very gratifying thing. So, in the meantime, our work, our songs, our music, it'll keep, and we'll be able to release it to everyone as soon as possible, as soon as situations allow. I'm going to leave things there for today. And based on what our governor says, tomorrow I may have a lot more to discuss. Until then, thanks for listening and be good to each other.